Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on Superman Lois Season 4. Today we're going to be doing my review and breakdown for episode 3 of Season 4. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos later this year. So let's just start off by saying, what an episode. I feel like over the past 3 episodes it's got better and better. And episode 3, as you know by the ending and some of the stuff that happens in the episode, it definitely went there. It went further than the first 2 episodes, beyond just the death of Superman. And I really like what I'm seeing. So I'm really looking forward to the episode afterwards. But for now, let's go ahead and break this down chronologically, bit by bit. So we open the episode with a beautiful, somber montage to open the episode as they bury someone. Obviously at the start of the episode we think it's Clark because that's the only person that has died up till now. But obviously later in the episode we get another death. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But it's a great montage. That is something that Superman and Lois does so great. As Lois explains, can you ever truly explain how much a person meant to you? All the love that you felt, all the memories that you shared. I feel like this is such a relatable monologue that I think a lot of us will probably connect to in one way or another, whether it's someone that's close to you that has passed away. I definitely think a lot of people have gone through that, and you've been super close with someone, and obviously if it's your husband, if it's a family member, I think it literally is exactly the way that she is talking about it. Like, you question everything, and you look back to the past and the love that you shared or the memories you had, and it's really tough. So I really like what Lois had to say at the start of the episode and the way that it comes full circle by the end of the episode. But let's move on to the next point. So General Lane is at the DOD. He returns in this episode, and it has to be said this is his final ever episode on the show. He's not returning for the series finale, which is quite a surprise to me. I thought potentially he was coming back. Obviously I did have a theory going that I thought if anyone's going to die on the show it's going to be General Lane, and it did happen in this episode, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But General Lane at the DOD, he talks to one of his colleagues about bringing in John Henry Irons and Natalie to help them out because they need their help whilst Doomsday is out there. So he thinks they're going to be way more effective working at the DOD and actually helping them because they need some extra firepower, that's for sure. And so this episode is definitely General Lane centric, as well as Natalie and John Henry Irons, and it focuses a lot on the DOD, and you have some other characters like one of his colleagues actually having a few lines here and there throughout the episode, so it's definitely a big deal. But moving on to a flashback. So this flashback was part of the sneak peek that was released the other day, and this is a flashback looking back at when Clark and Lois told General Lane that Clark is Superman. Obviously he's surprised by this because Clark is quite bumbling, he is goofy, you would not expect him to be Superman, but I love when he takes his glasses off in slow motion with the lens flares. It looks great, but it also takes the mick out of, Superman with the glasses and without the glasses, completely different person, even though they look exactly the same. That is the joke, and they run with it here, and I loved it. It was a great scene, and especially looking at General Lane's reaction, like that's a different side of General Lane that we're seeing. We're seeing more of the humane side, looking back in these flashbacks, seeing the flashback also with Lois later in the episode. You get to really understand him a bit better. Obviously we've had a lot with him in the past, but this episode helped flesh out a little bit more to do with his character. And so John Henry and Natalie return on screen after being talked about by General Lane, of course, and so John regrets not helping Clark, which is something that obviously us fans have been talking about since episode 1 and episode 2, because obviously it was strange that they weren't in those episodes, because you would have thought they would have acted straight away and helped Superman, but they chose not to help Clark because obviously it's extremely dangerous fighting something like Doomsday. I mean, he killed Superman and he's not even dead himself. So it was definitely a huge risk, and I think Natalie actually pointed that out, and they will have to step up. They realize this in this new world without Superman after his death, and this is the talk that they have together, and Natalie's actually the one spearheading this, because it's a world only with Jordan as Superboy with powers, as well as them with their suits, and the power of the DoD is not going to do anything to stop something like Doomsday. And so let's move over to Lois, because we've got Lois thinking back to Doomsday dropping Superman and her reaction. It's very traumatic looking back at that. Obviously that's going to affect her throughout this season, and it's going to affect everyone else, including the boys. And talking of the boys, Jonathan confronts Jordan in the next scene about his anger, and his powers kick in. What did I say, guys? I told you. All the hints from the synopsis, from the way that people have been talking about Jonathan, and the fact that Jordan in a previous episode said that his heart rate was strangely slow. So has his powers been developing over these years? And are you guys completely surprised? Like, I know for a fact a lot of you are not expecting this, and I think this is going to be one of the biggest shocks of the episode. It was definitely a big surprise to me when I watched this episode a week or so ago, and seeing his x-ray vision kick in, his ice breath, his heat vision, everything coming to fruition. It was such a great scene. Now obviously this was something they probably planned to do in the final season. I think they probably didn't want to do it straight away, and it's definitely a little bit rushed. However, it's really cool to see him having powers. Although I should point out, a lot of fans have bought into the idea of the boys not being superpowered beings together and having their own separate stories where they're able to be more than just the son of a Kryptonian. Well, now they both have powers. Jonathan, as you see, he flies around, and obviously Superman's pod opens up and he's extremely excited. This turns his mood completely around, and you have to realize it took a moment of pure anger for this to kick in. So that is something that obviously Jordan had a similar situation. It was like a life or death situation when his powers started to kick in. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm still shocked by this. Let me know, what do you think about this in the comments down below? And how do you think they're going to develop this into the future episodes? I think they're going to go full out, and they're going to have them two team up together as two versions of Superboy. And that will be their spin on the reign of Superman. They will have still Natalie and the two Superboys teaming up, trying to take down Doomsday. Unless there is some way that they talk down Doomsday, like if there is even a glimmer of Bizarro inside Doomsday, are they able to get through to him? It's going to be very hard. Or are they just going to straight up kill Doomsday altogether? And that is their spin on the famous comic book. So moving on from Jonathan being the new Superboy, we have another flashback, and this is a very important flashback because General Lane kicks back over Clark, asking him to marry Lois. Now obviously we've seen the ramifications of this. We know in season 1 he was very disapproving of everything, and the fact that, you know, they wanted to move to Smallville and not be in Metropolis to help out because he thinks it's his whole duty to be Superman. And obviously in the flashbacks he still believes that because that was before. And so he is very taken aback by Clark asking to marry Lois, because if he dies, and I think this is very poignant that they pointed this out and made sure to include this flashback, because General Lane mentions if Superman dies or if Clark dies, she will face the pain for the rest of her life because he's putting his life at risk all the time as Superman. And obviously he is extremely powerful, he can survive most beings and most things, but when that one creature or that one being is too powerful for Superman and he does bite the dust, like we have seen in episode 1, and that being Doomsday, of course, being the creature, General Lane does not want that for Lois. And that makes complete sense because he is a military man. He is someone that's probably had close friends or, you know, partners who were maybe killed in action or something very sadly. And I think he is taking his experience and putting it on Clark in this flashback. Now let's move on. We got Lex, who is feeding Doomsday, and while he's doing that, his plan to get General Lane is in action. And what happens next is we find out that there is a mole or someone working for Lex inside the DoD, and it's one of his fellow agents, and he pulls a gun on General Lane. Now this was a shocking scene because it came out of nowhere, and he has been searching for this serum all episode, and this serum has Kryptonian DNA in it. It has Kryptonian blood, And so it just so happens to be in the same room as him when he is shot. And he is bleeding out, he is going to die if he doesn't get help really fast, and he doesn't get help because Doomsday is on his way, because Lex sends Doomsday to the DoD to get General Lane. So his plan is in action, and his initial plans of what to do with that serum have to change as he realizes he has to step up and do something for the greater good of the world. And he realizes if there is any way that he can save Superman, he's got to do it. So he sacrifices himself because he knows that Lex is after him. And as he is bleeding out, he injects himself with the serum, which gives them the opportunity to take his heart and save Superman. And so they do that exactly later in the episode. But let's quickly recap some of the stuff that I missed whilst explaining that. So Jonathan is talked about being trained at the DoD. Obviously Jordan is not invited to that. I thought that was pretty bad myself. And meanwhile, Lex goes to the barn in Smallville and talks to Jordan. Obviously this is quite an intimate conversation because he's trying to get Jordan basically to come to the dark side. He plays a recording of Lois choosing Jonathan, and that's like an oh shit moment because Jordan realizes, oh, Lois has a favorite. My mum would choose Jonathan instead of me if it was a life or death situation. So that's kind of insane, and he had to deal with that. And so back with General Lane, we have a flashback which we see him walking her down the aisle, obviously that being Lois, and he says, I'll always be brave for you. And this precedes him sacrificing himself, and you see him walking outside of the DoD as Doomsday approaches, and Doomsday grabs him by the neck and kills General Lane. It's brutal, it's dark, it's traumatic once again as his neck is snapped in the streets. You see Lois's cry, it is just pure pain. She's lost her husband and now she's lost her dad to the same friggin' creature, and she doesn't realize at that time his sacrifice and what he had to do after he got shot, because he had to go through with this plan to try and save the world from Lex Luthor and from Doomsday. And so they bring General Lane's heart back to Superman, and it's at this moment that we have one last message, and it's chilling. And this is from General Lane saying he's going to come back, talking about Superman. I'm getting chills right now even talking about it. What a scene. Bitsy's acting is so good throughout the episode, especially as they bury her father and we get that repeat of the opening monologue. But the final shot of the entire episode is so good. It's chilling, as I said, and that is the return of Superman, who is fully healed and wakes up in the fortress. Superman is coming back, guys. He is alive, he is well. I mean, I don't know if he's battle ready yet, but General Lane's sacrifice was worthy and Superman is back. So how the hell is he going to stop Doomsday this time? That is the big question. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you enjoyed the episode, because what an episode. Really looking forward to episode 4. I will have my trailer breakdown out tomorrow as usual, but for now, if you enjoyed this review and breakdown of episode 3, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It would really help this video get out there. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. But for now, you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.